The biggest debate coming out of the 2026 draft was Ty Simpson being selected number 13 overall by the Los Angeles Rams. Many have criticized the pick, saying it's a bad pick because the Rams are Super Bowl contenders and they need more weapons, or that Ty Simpson isn't good enough to be worth a first round pick. But to get it out of the way, Ty Simpson was absolutely worth the first round pick and where he was taken over who the Rams could have drafted instead. Simpson is not just another random one-year flyer that had a good season. He's a rare QB prospect with special circumstances that made him worth the selection by the Rams. Let's get started with why Ty Simpson was a better route to go over other selections. I think the biggest and most important thing people forgot about last year is right before the 2025 season, there were talks about Stafford might not be able to play this year and him possibly retiring because of his back issues. Now obviously this might seem redundant because Stafford had a MVP season and the Rams almost made it to the Super Bowl. But if you are a smart organization, which the Rams are, you understand that yes, you have a future Hall of Famer as your QB and he still plays like one, but he is 38 years old, has a history of back injuries, a couple years ago, a neck injury that he needed surgery on, and possibly thought about retirement. You have to think about the future in that case, especially since this Rams team is not the same one that won the Super Bowl a few years ago. It's made up of very talented young guys, especially at the core of the offense and defense. So we established that the Rams need to think about the future QB, and we'll get into what makes him so elite as a QB prospect the media is not telling you about. But what about who else was available? Well, the biggest names were Ruben Bain, Kenyon Sadiq, and Makai, a new offensive weapon for the offense and a future replacement, at least with Makai for Devonta Adams. Here's the thing, Makai is just not that guy. He's not Puka Nacua 2.0. He's not Devonta Adams' replacement. He's a vastly overrated slot guy who is starting to get a lot of hype. The thing with Makai is that most of his receptions and yards were from short passes and screens. That's how he eats. He struggles to win the outside and get separation, and he's pretty slow as well. It is an entire video in itself of whether he's a good prospect or not, but the point is he's not a modern St. Brown. He's not Puka Nacua. He's nowhere near their level. The bigger point is that he would be redundant in terms of target share. Most of the targets went to Nacua or Adams in 2025, and that's important because of three things. Even if Lemon is good, he probably won't be better than Adams or Nacua. That's a safe thing to say. And even if Adams is not the elite wide receiver who can consistently win on the outside, his perfection as a technician will leave him perfectly fine as a guy in the slot. He also was kind of used that way last year interchangeably anyway, so we already know what that looks like for the Rams. The Rams' heavy use of 13 personnel will leave Lemon on the sideline anyway, because he probably isn't taking over Puka or Devonta Adams' spot unless they get hurt. Now speaking of 13 and 12 personnel, that brings us to Kenyon Sadiq. If the Rams use a lot of tight ends, why not draft him? Well, it's because of this. They have all the right tight ends to run their offensive scheme. That's with run blocking and sometimes pass blocking and still being serviceable and going out to be a receiving threat. The Rams have also invested pretty heavily in tight ends the past few years, drafting and signing free agents. In 2023, they drafted Davis Allen in the 5th round out of Clemson. In 2024, they signed Colby Parkinson from the Seahawks to a 3-year deal. Then they drafted Sadiq's teammate, Terrace Ferguson, in the 2nd round out of Oregon last year. Then they drafted Max Clare out of Ohio State in the 2nd round this year after they drafted Ty Simpson. Clare is an underrated prospect and known to be a good route runner and pass catcher. So the Rams really didn't need Sadiq despite everyone saying that the Rams do need him. There's two other important things to remember though. One being elite quarterbacks are way harder to find than tight ends. And when you have, whether you agree or not, the elite QB prospect, when you are a well-run organization that doesn't have a bad season necessarily, you have to take that QB prospect. Because if the Rams win the Super Bowl next season and Stafford retires, the Rams will need to fork up 3 first-round picks, minimum 2 first-rounders to go up and get a QB in the 2027 draft class, when they have, albeit the chance to draft a potential franchise QB without trading up using a first-round pick this year. Also, next year would be a lot better year for wide receivers. In the same way, the Rams wanted to think ahead for future QB, and 2027 will be that year for wide receivers. There are many alpha wide receiver ones that are likely to continue to be elite and come out next year, and with that class overall being loaded with blue chip talent, the Rams could have a couple of those wide receivers fall to them to where they could trade up without giving up a whole lot of picks. Now keep in mind too, the Rams want to avoid being the Steelers, who have been consistently good enough where they can't get a QB prospect, one that's actually good, though they did miss on Tyler Shock. Ultimately, the Rams don't need Sadiq or Lemon. They're just not that good of a prospect that they are a must draft. Ty Simpson being a QB is worth the pick at solving what most teams struggle with year after year. It's not just because Ty Simpson is a QB. He is a rare, based on the circumstances, elite QB prospect. What people are missing in Ty Simpson is that they think he's another Brock Purdy or Mac Jones, and that's because they think he doesn't have good arm strength and that he's short. Well, in terms of being short, Bo Nix and Patrick Mahomes are 6'2", and Ty Simpson is also 6'2". His height is fine. Ty Simpson also has very good arm strength, not arm talent, but he can fire the ball over the middle or throw a deep ball without it hanging in the air. And the best way to show you guys this is the film. Against South Carolina, Ty Simpson will show just this. Ty Simpson gets the ball and looks to the middle and then to the right, narrowly avoiding the rush and seeing a golden opportunity downfield. With stepping up into the pocket, he throws a dart, not a balloon ball, not a underthrown rainbow ball, a 62-yard bomb which is just out of the wide receiver's reach, but it is very impressive given what you may have been told about his arm strength. Here LSU is running cover 3, so it appears. It actually would be a variation of cover 2 or cover 7. Simpson gets a snap, looks to his safety, identifies the rotation, and sees the edge rusher flying off the edge. He steps up into the pocket, all while looking to the right. Now this looks open, but if thrown, Mansour Delane will creep up and that's a wrap interception. But Ty moves off of that to see a golden opportunity downfield. Now for context, it is the second quarter with 50-ish seconds remaining till the half. And so Simpson moves quickly to throw this, stepping up and casually throwing a 50-yard bullet. It's a super impressive throw and it demonstrates why his arm strength is way better than people think. There's more examples in this film, but arm strength is something where you have it or you don't. It doesn't get worse unless you get hurt, which he was down the stretch and into the playoffs, or unless you get old. Also want to spend more time on something else that people are missing in Ty Simpson, and that's his out of structure play. Against Auburn, Ty Simpson will be knocking the door in the red zone. Auburn's showing cover 0 on 3rd and 4. Whenever you're facing cover 0 or ascending the house, the expectation is that you get the ball quickly, and that means throwing to one of these guys. However, Auburn covers this up well, with one of the blitzers dropping into coverage, taking away Simpson's only realistic option. For quarterbacks where they are just passengers or the average QB, his play and drive is over. Not with Ty Simpson. The first thing Ty Simpson does is drop back ASAP, not wasting any time. This is what separates him from Mendoza, and it's the decision to increase the depth of his stride and his drop back to continue to buy time on a dead play. This allows him to throw to this wide receiver, who is covered well, but Simpson places his ball in a perfect spot with some juice despite defenders all around him, moving backwards rapidly, and makes a spectacular throw in a crunch time scenario. According to the media, Ty Simpson can't do this or they never told you he could. Against South Carolina, we see more of his out of structure abilities. South Carolina is running a one high look. Simpson takes a snap and looks to the right to keep the safety over there, and then moves his eyes to the left to see two possible options, one deep and one short. However, a big boy has broken his way through the offensive line and will interfere with this throw. So Simpson stops, shedding the big man and escaping out of the pocket. He moves then to the right, looking for something to get the first down. With the corner distracted, the wide receiver here sneaks by wide open. Simpson sees it and tosses it to him for the first down. Sure, here it's wide open, but the fact they got out of a sticky situation and ad-lib is what's impressive. His third down, Auburn is showing cover 3 with a blitz. Simpson calls something at the line as well. Then Auburn starts to shift their defense to cover 6, rotating back to cover 3 with the safety blitzing. Simpson drops back ASAP, knowing he's about to get smacked. He sees Williams about to clear and with separation, throwing with anticipation and getting smacked. This is the exact type of grit that is needed to make not just the big plays or the out of structure plays, but the simple ones as well while under pressure. The comp to Mac Jones made by Mel Kiper is a bit disappointing because they are completely different QBs, especially in their scrambling ability. Auburn has 3 deep defenders with it kind of looking like they might run cover 0, but they don't. So Simpson takes a snap and looks left at this wide receiver and safety. Now he makes a mistake at first as this corner route is open. See, whenever you have a safety or defender moving one way and they have to flip their hips, that takes time and opens up almost any throw because it's forcing them to flip their hips. This is poor processing by Simpson as he can layer this ball in. He moves off this to here and this will kind of be open. It has been about 3 seconds at this point in the play, in which QBs should have that sense that their time is up in the pocket, and while he isn't seeing it, pressure from his left is coming, except the guy fell down. Now Simpson bails out of the pocket, outrunning the edge defenders, and he could go out of bounds, but there is a path to the first down, which he does take, outmaneuvering the corner and getting the first down. For being a Mac Jones 2.0, he can certainly move. This next play, I want to hear your guys' opinions. It's 4th and 1, and Simpson is under center. Alabama does not run the ball, but it is play action. Simpson rolls right with the running back, and he can throw it to the running back, which is 3 yards away from the first down, with the defender trailing him, or he can take it for himself. Now, what do you guys think he should have done? And here's another angle of that. What Ty does do is he takes the ball for himself, makes 2 guys fall, breaks the ankles of another guy, Makai, jukes out the big boy and dives down for the first down, avoiding a hit. Should have thrown to the running back, but this was a great out of structure scramble even if it was wrong, and on a 4th down too. Another critical down and Auburn's running cover 0. Simpson gets the protection set, takes the snap, drops back looking at the middle to see if the dig is open for the first. It won't be because the DB has inside leverage, so Simpson looks left to Ryan Williams. He's not clearly open, so it's going to have to be a 50-50 ball. So Simpson lets it rip with pressure barreling towards him, and he actually places his ball well, with the corner trying to deflect it, but it doesn't seem clear whether or not he did hit the ball. It does hit the hands of Williams though, and he bobbles it and drops it. It's a great ball by Simpson. Something else that Ty Simpson's not getting enough credit for is processing. See, most quarterbacks when they first start struggle a lot with processing and going through full field reads. And for context, Ty Simpson didn't start until his final year in college, which you probably knew that already. So the expectation would be for him to struggle with processing just because he's fresh and has never played. And that's just not what happened with Ty Simpson. Georgia's running cover 3 pre-snap, moving to a cover 7 post-snap. Simpson gets the snap, sees the defense rotating coverage, and looks to the far right receiver. He sees this isn't open because the linebacker dropping back in zone here. Then he looks down the barrel of the defense and sees the safety playing too shallow, not seeing Williams in time. Ty Simpson quickly identifies this and does not waste any time, stepping forward and launching the ball deep, splitting the safeties and dropping the ball in the bucket for Williams to drop it. Throughout all steps of this play, Simpson processed the field perfectly and made the correct decision without hesitation. And that would have been a touchdown too. Here against LSU, we'll continue to see great processing. LSU is running cover 3. Simpson starts by looking to the right, but this is intentional. By looking to the right, it opens up this in and out route on the left by shifting the safety's attention to the right as well. But more importantly, the hips. Now the safety has to flip them around to turn around and accelerate. Still, Simpson's going to need to put this on the money for the throw to be a success. Taking a second to calculate and proceeding to throw a dart, placing this ball perfectly. It's a big time throw. Now, processing is more than just reading a defense correctly and efficiently. It also includes decision making, though you could argue otherwise. For me, I blend the two in my analysis, and for Ty Simpson, he's exceptional at pulling the trigger, quote unquote, on explosive throws and moving off reads. It's cover 1, but it turns into cover 7 again. Ty gets a snap and looks to the left. Because of the coverage, Tulane passes off Bernard while watching Ty. Ty is staring right at this guy, but it's not to throw there. It's to make it seem like he is, because he's trying to create an open throw in the zone with Bernard, with 11 distracted. Now Simpson has time for Bernard to clear and he zips it out to him. It's a little behind the wide receiver, but it's still good processing. Here in the red zone, it's 4 from 4, with there being 1:15 left in the second quarter. Crunch time situation. Ty Simpson gets a snap, looks to his left, and sees both guys on the short routes covered well, with having a leverage advantage. Simpson then turns to the next guy, again well covered. That's when he moves to his next read, and that is open, with the defensive back trailing him and the other defensive back not in position to keep up. It leaves the wide receiver wide open, and Simpson zips it to him for the touchdown. The throw is not what's impressive or notable here. It's cleanly going through the reads without rushing or going too slow, and in a crunch time situation where QBs often falter. Similar situation here, Alabama gets the ball back with barely any time on the clock. Ty drops back, sees the back end of the defense, and gets to the back of his drop back. He sees Bernard clearly open enough to fit this over the top, and what's notable here is how quickly he's moving to throw. Some guys, especially Mendoza, hesitate or don't throw these explosive plays when available. You have to in order to be elite QB in the NFL. Now on this play, Bernard does not track the ball well and it falls incomplete. If he shifted right, this should have been caught for the touchdown in my opinion. Some will disagree with that. And here's the thing that people are not talking about enough with Ty Simpson, and it's the one real concern of him as a prospect and going forward, that's injury risk. See, what's being glossed over is what exactly Ty Simpson was injured with towards the end of the regular season. From chronological order, Simpson in the third quarter of the South Carolina game hurt his lower back, which was a disc that was bulging and caused
gastritis.
Oh, that's loud, bro. And that caused gastritis, which is likely caused by the nerve compression from the bulging disc. He was playing through that for the rest of the season and then suffered elbow bursitis, which is swelling from a fluid-filled sac on the bony end of your elbow and affects the motion of your arm. It's not exactly clear how long he dealt with that, but then he broke a rib in the playoffs against Indiana, which him losing a considerable amount of weight from the gastritis could have played a factor in him losing some fat padding near his rib. It's a guess, I'm not a doctor, so have at it. Now hear that and you may think, dang, he played through all that and wasn't horrible, but clearly was affected by it and wasn't playing the best. At minimum, it proves he has some grit. It's a clear reason and excuse for why his play dropped. On the other hand, he's played 1 year of college football and he's suffering from chronic injuries already. Chronic injuries should be a concern for any athlete. And if you guys watched my Tyler Shuck video from last year, you may remember that I pushed aside his injuries that he had suffered. That was because the collarbone he broke the first time was never properly treated. At least he didn't have surgery on it. And they broke it again the next year, and he finally had surgery to fix it. It was also his left collarbone, not his right. And that's critical because it wasn't his throwing side. The third injury he had was that he broke his leg due to a hip drop tackle. We already know that a ton of injuries happen due to hip drop tackles. Those injuries are not chronic, and they're rare injuries that are likely to never happen again. Back injuries are different, and something we have seen affect Shedeur Sanders in his final year of college with his deep ball and in his rookie year. It should be clarified that Shedeur fractured part of his back, and that's why he may deal with that for the remainder of his career. All that to say, Ty Simpson having a chronic issue of his back is concerning, and no one is talking about it. Literally no one. That is and should be the one thing people should be critiquing, if anything. This brings us to supporting cast. I think there's some polarizing opinions on Ty Simpson's supporting cast coming out of Alabama. Some people say it was a bad supporting cast, and others say he had a really good one. Personally, I think it is in the middle. The best part of Ty Simpson's supporting cast was the scheme. It was not only effective and productive scheme, having good play designs and using its personnel effectively, but it was a NFL style offense that ran a lot of basic and some higher end NFL concepts. The obvious being the large amount of under-centered play and explosive oriented plays. What people missed of that was Ty Simpson was being asked to do a lot. He was in charge of setting protections and changing plays at the line. Most college quarterbacks are not doing that, let alone in their first year of starting. And with setting those protections, they were kind of getting figured out in the first half of the Oklahoma game. That becomes a schematic flaw, not a Ty Simpson flaw. And speaking of protection, the offensive line was said to be bad, but some people also said it was great. That was again more in the middle, if anything. Players on Alabama's offensive line graded out to be pretty good, even in true pass sets, which throws out plays when it is a screen, play action, rollout, or sets parameters for how fast or how long a QB is taking to throw. But the offensive line still gave up a lot of pressures, and for me, that's a big thing. We see Ty Simpson was under the 7th most pressure in all of college football, being under pressure 164 times, one less than Arch Manning and one more than Lenora Sellers. You'll hear analysts rave about Manning and Sellers being under so much pressure and that their offensive lines were bad. But those same analysts won't talk about it with Ty Simpson. Something else that doesn't get talked about much is the crazy number of drops Alabama's receivers committed. In total, Ty Simpson's wide receivers dropped 30 passes, tying for the 3rd most in all of college football. That's an insane amount. Fernando Mendoza receivers had a total of 6. Julian Sand receivers had 6, and Drew Aller's receivers had 6, though he only played for half a season. Drops should be a bigger part of QB evaluations. It's part of why people missed on Tyler Shuck last year. Shuck provided a lot of high leverage throws, but they were consistently dropped, particularly in high leverage situations, which is a similar case to Simpson. Now that we're talking about wide receivers, it should be pointed out that Simpson had a wide receiver 1 in Ryan Williams, who also forgot how to play football this past year. He was just very inconsistent and contributed to the large number of drops Simpson had, having 10 drops total, the 3rd most in all of college football. That's not good. Even though Williams was a problem, he still was making plays despite dropping big ones. I still hesitate to say that the receiving core of Alabama was bad. They were not bad by any means, just inconsistent. Jeremy Bernard was a good receiver. He was, after all, drafted very high by the Steelers compared to where others thought he would go. Admittedly, I've not watched his film carefully enough to have much of opinion besides that he is a solid wide receiver. I weigh having a wide receiver 1 heavily, and because Ty Simpson had, albeit an inconsistent one, I'm giving this part more of a grace. What I won't give much grace on is Alabama's horrific run game. We have heard all the time the excuse for quarterbacks and their poor play, how bad the run game is, and how much a factor it plays in offensive production, which I think the run game is an important part of the offense, but it's such an overblown argument or excuse for defending quarterbacks. I clearly like Ty Simpson as a prospect, and I really love that the Rams drafted him. This was the best situation possible for him to go, for any QB for that matter. I don't think he is as good as Tyler Shuck as a prospect or Bo Nix, for example, but Simpson only had 1 year of experience, and he very well and likely will refine every part of his game. It's natural and it happens for almost every QB in college. Going from 1 year of playing to the next year, there is some type of increase usually. What about Fernando Mendoza? Is he truly as good as the hype, what the media says he is, and being the #1 overall pick? Well, I have some thoughts. Check out the video here or one of the videos on Drew Aller or the comparison of Simpson and Mendoza and how Simpson is better than him.